local actors in building sustainable peace. And I want to thank SIL for everything you've done to bring this, this study and this effort to fruition. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for, I should put this on too. Do I have to push this one for the Zoom, I think?
Yeah, if the light is on, it should.
Okay, there we go. All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Bill Bremer and I am with SIL International. And I would like to welcome you all and thank you, Uzra, for your warm welcome too, and for the facilities to hold this event here today with a wonderful view, and for Alliance for Peacebuilding for all the work that you're doing. And also special thanks to Sam Danello and Adam Wolf for helping with all the logistics to get us set up here. Our invitation mistakenly said that this is the 20th anniversary of International Mother Language Day. It's actually the 19th. It was recognized in '99 in November. So next year will be the 20th. We'll probably have to have a big bash at that time. But I'd also like to recognize and welcome our embassy representatives here, Ambassador Lin and Susu Ang from the Embassy of Myanmar, Minglaba, to the Chargé d'Affaires from the Embassy of Papua New Guinea, Kefis Keo, welcome, and to Pisek Panupat and Patreya Watanasin from the Embassy of Thailand, Sawatika. So welcome all of you. I want to also welcome everyone here, as well as all of those joining us on Zoom. Hopefully you can hear us. This is also the first event in a series of events this year for the International Year of Indigenous Languages, which UNESCO has recognized. And there's more information about that at the website I've listed up there. Lots of good information on events coming up this year, if you're interested in those. And yes. Oh, we're also having another event I should mention on May 16th with focusing on the ethno-arts and how they contribute to education and economic development. So hope you'll join us for that as well. Language is at the core of our identity, not just individually, but as communities. And today, Dr. Kirk Person, who is joining us all the way from Thailand, will be talking about a report that he authored for UNICEF, focusing on a project in southern Thailand among the Patani Malay speakers. This is a mother tongue-based multilingual education project, and he's going to talk to us about all of the good things that came out of that, not just for the students academically in learning, but also for the peace-building efforts that provided. Kirk first went to Thailand about 30 years ago as a volunteer English teacher, and he stayed. And he's been with us for, I'm not sure how long, actually.
25 years.
25 years, so a quarter century, silver anniversary there. He's conducted linguistic fieldwork in Thailand, Myanmar, and China, taught graduate linguistics courses at several Thai universities, and served on the Royal Institute of Thailand's National Language Policy Drafting Committee. He also represents SIL to the Asia Pacific Multilingual Education Working Group and the Thematic Working Group on Education for All, both hosted by UNESCO Bangkok. He's an advisor to Mahidol University's Patani Malay Thai Multilingual Education Program, which received the 2016 UNESCO King Sejong Literacy Prize. So I will welcome now Kirk Person.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. 2 days ago, I was in the swimming pool near my house in Bangkok, looking at the palm trees and thinking, do I really want to get on an airplane to come here? But seeing all of you here today, I think I made the right choice, and I haven't frozen to death yet. And as Bill mentioned, February 21st is a special day in the minds of many of us involved in work with ethnic minority language groups or indigenous language groups. It's a really special time where the United Nations has recognized the importance of these groups and how their needs are very unique. And even though they live in many, many different countries, as diverse as Thailand and Myanmar and Canada and Australia, that some of the needs of these groups are similar. Let's see, will we be able to move to the PowerPoint now? Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Sorry, just want to make sure, is his microphone on?
Yes, I think it's picking up some
Does
sound.
it have to be green or red?
Green.
Okay, green.
It was picking up sound even better now, but now it's green.
Okay, great. And if I start walking around, should I carry it with me then?
Yes, you should.
Okay, excellent. I tend to get excited when I talk about this, so I might need to move around a little bit. So the title of the report, which my colleague Bill Bremer referred to, is Bridge to a Brighter Tomorrow, the Patani Malay Thai Multilingual Education Program. So we'll be talking some about that program, but also more generally as to how minority languages fit into peace-building efforts or into efforts to develop greater social cohesion. So first we'll look a little bit at the role of language and conflict, or conflict mitigation. Because it turns out that language is a very often ignored part of many different conflicts throughout the world. So we'll talk about a few cases where language has fed into ethnic strife. And then we'll talk a little bit about this area of language and education. And this is increasingly becoming a big issue on the international scale. Through the Sustainable Development Goals and all the work that the United Nations has done on collecting statistics, we now know that there are about 617 million children worldwide who are never going to learn to read, write, or do basic math. 617 million. That's 3 times the population of Brazil, more than twice the population of America. And the real tragedy is that about 2/3 of those children, more than 400 million, are in school, but they're not learning anything. They go through school 6 years, 8 years sometimes, and they come out still unable to do basic math or have basic literacy skills. And we found, we don't have totally accurate statistics, it's hard to gauge from this, but the best we've been able to guess from looking at these is that at least 240 million of those children who are learning nothing are in schools where they don't understand the language of the teacher. This is huge areas of Africa where it's English only or French only education. Huge parts of India and Pakistan where English education is growing everywhere because English is seen as the road to prosperity and better jobs. And it's true, English is important, but the way it's being taught, the children are actually learning nothing. They're not becoming literate in their mother tongue. They're not becoming literate in English. They're not doing well in all the subjects. It's what an Indian scholar has called the doom schools of India, where specifically reaching out to poor people, but in English only, and the children are not learning anything. So again, this fact of language is often a push-out factor that is essentially pushing children out of the school system. It's causing dropouts in many cases. Next slide, please. So I'd like to begin, as my colleague Bill Bremer mentioned, today is International Mother Language Day. And the reason that February 21st was chosen is because of an event that happened in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, on February 21st, 1971, a group of university students gathered to protest against the official language policy. Now, you may recall after Great Britain withdrew from India, that India was divided, India and Pakistan, and Bangladesh was originally called East Pakistan. So even though they didn't even share the same border, they were supposed to be the same country. And Pakistan had declared Urdu as their national language. Now, Urdu was only spoken by less than 5% of the population of Pakistan. They're mostly the elite people who'd migrated from India to Pakistan after independence. In fact, the first prime minister of Pakistan had never set foot in Pakistan before he moved there. But since Urdu was his language and the language of the people he knew and trusted and the technical people he worked with, it was declared the national language of Pakistan, although again, only 5% of the population spoke it. And then they told the Bangladeshis, you now all need to speak Urdu as well. To get government jobs, you must pass an Urdu test. To study in university, the professor should be lecturing in Urdu. And no one in Bangladesh spoke Urdu. So eventually protests mounted, and because of this Urdu-only language policy, the students protested. They were massacred by the Pakistani military. After that, many years of civil war. Depending on who you read, it was anywhere between 300,000 to maybe 2 million people who were killed in that civil war. And language was the spark that lit the fire there. We can also look at Sri Lanka. Now, we all know about the terrible conflict that took up Sri Lanka for so many years between the Tamils in the north and the Sinhalese in the south. But again, there was a language dimension to that that is often ignored. Because after Sri Lanka received independence from Great Britain, instead of having English as the language of government, Sinhalese became the language of government. So if a government official could not speak Sinhalese, they were fired. So all the Tamil government officials, almost all of them, were fired because they couldn't speak Sinhalese. And so then those Americans all know the phrase taxation without representation. So the feeling of the Tamils is here we're being governed by people who don't speak our language. Our people have almost no chance to become, government officials. So we become like colonized in our own nation. And so the language factor was a big factor in that Sri Lankan conflict. Next one. Some of you may have seen these great scenes from Ukraine a few years ago, when the parliament in Ukraine was erupting in fistfights and pretty chaotic. That was when they passed a law saying that Russian would be one of the recognized languages of Ukraine. 2 years later, they repealed that law. I think it was in February of 2014. And they said Russian will no longer be considered a language of Ukraine. And again, in Eastern Ukraine, there were hundreds of thousands of Russian speakers. So with that law, they essentially alienated a huge part of the population. And they also gave Mr. Putin an excuse to invade. I told my sociolinguistics PhD students at that time, just wait, this is just a sign. The war is not all about language, but this is a sign that the government has just excluded millions of people, and it could be another excuse for the Russians to come in and do something. And that turned out to be correct. So you can look at other examples in the Balkans, some in Africa, not so much, but a number of places where language has become a part of a wider conflict. And it's really because language is hard to separate from the person. We'll always have an accent. You can always tell where someone is from because of their language. Now, worldwide, we have over 7,000 languages. Now, in the United Nations, does anyone recall how many states are in the United Nations, member states? I think it's 192, 193, depending on if you count. So really, multilingual nations are the norm. There are very few nations, maybe Iceland and North Korea, that are monolingual. All other nations have some sort of ethnic and linguistic diversity. Slide, please. And Thailand is also a very diverse nation, although a good friend of mine at Mahadol University says Thailand is a multilingual country that sees itself as monolingual. However, linguists have found about 70 languages spoken in Thailand. And many of these languages are also spoken in the neighbor, Myanmar. Some are spoken in Malaysia and elsewhere. Now, some of these languages are very, very small, endangered languages. For example, up in the north, Bisu, a language I have been learning for 20 years, only about 700 people. So there are many of these very small languages with fewer than 1,000 people, but there are also many larger languages. And these languages are spoken, some of them, like the Karen language, or Korean, is spoken by 500,000 people, which is about the same as the population of Wales in the UK. The Mon language, also spoken in Myanmar. I believe the ambassador has some experience of that. Many Vietnamese speakers in the northeast of Thailand even. More than 1 million people who speak Khmer as their mother tongue in Buriram and Surin provinces. And then down in the south, we have the group we'll be talking about today, the Patani Malay. Now, Malaysia is the border. How did these people come into Thailand? And there are actually about 2 million people who speak Patani Malay as their first language. Now, I love old maps. And so this is a French map from 1686. And back then, you can see that Patani was listed there, but it was more on the Malaysian side of the border. And this was the Siamese border at that time. Although again, borders really weren't as clear back then as they are now. But in the late 18th century and then through the 19th century, there were a series of wars going on between Thailand and these northern Muslim states. Now, Patani at that time was very much a Muslim sultanate. And it was seen as a center of Islamic studies for the whole region. Muslims came from all over Southeast Asia to study in Patani. It was sort of seen as a golden era when a sultan reigned and they had many elephants and great armies and great commerce and so forth. Next slide, please. But later on, again, through these conflicts, Siam, as it was then known, came to dominate those northern Malay states. And there's a famous place, this is actually the starting line to the Bangkok Marathon. I ran the Bangkok Marathon last year, and it started in front of the Ministry of Defense of Thailand. And in front of the ministry, they have this cannon. This is a 200-year-old cannon that was captured from the Sultan of Patani in one of the battles there. And it is still pointed south from the Ministry of Education. And even though this cannon is 200 years old, the Patani Malay people in the south feel that it is a sign that they are still in the target of the military. And they've been asking for many years for the military to move this 200-year-old cannon. So far they won't. So again, Siam won those wars, and as a result, the Malay sultans began sending what was called the offering of the gold and silver trees to the Siamese king. So this is a beautiful example of what that form of tribute meant. It also meant sending other forms of money and food and other things, but these trees were a powerful symbol that they were now under the Siamese king's authority. Next slide, please. Of course, Great Britain later came into the area. Because Britain was dominant in Malaysia, there was a lot of discussion between the Thais and the British about where the border should be. Eventually, the Anglo-Siamese Treaty in 1909 determined the border. And from the Thai standpoint, this was a loss because Siamese or Thai territory had gone much further south. From the British standpoint, it was a loss because the British wanted a lot more of southern Thailand than they got. But it was the agreement. And then after World War II, the British decided to maintain that border as it was. That caused some problems also because the British had promised the Patani Malay people in southern Thailand that they could be part of Malaysia or maybe have an independent state if they'd help the British in World War II. So again, the British promised different things to all sorts of different people in the area, and in the end, it may have contributed to the current conflict. Next slide, please. So after World War II in 1946, the Islamic Council of Patani gathered with this leader, Haji Sulong, and their whole topic was, okay, we are going to be part of Thailand. What's the best way that we can coexist in this state? And so they issued what were called the 7 requests. Now, different people translate it 7 demands, 7 requests. It's hard to say exactly what it was, but it was basically 7 points that they would like, that the Southern Muslims would like to see in the hope that it could cause peaceful coexistence. And 2 of those related to language. One, they asked that their Malay language would be taught in the schools alongside Thai. So they requested bilingual education for their students. And they also asked that their language could be recognized as an official language just in that area, so that government officials could communicate in their language. The villagers could talk to the officials in the Patani Malay language. Sadly, those requests were denied at the time, and it would be about 60 years before some of these were revisited. Everything got very, so ever since the 1940s, there was sporadic violence in the South. Some of it was inspired by Chinese communists, some by different Muslim groups. There's a terrible incident in 2004 where some Muslim insurgents overran a Thai army base, stole a lot of weapons, and then began using them to attack Thai troops. And as often the case in conflicts, the national government's forces reacted. Sometimes the reaction was a little too strong. Sometimes local commanders in the South disobeyed their commanding officer in Bangkok. And that resulted in some serious offenses of things that actually made many of the local people feel even worse. This was one terrible incident where a number of protesters were rounded up. The men were stacked in the back of pickup trucks, and 80 of them suffocated because they were crushed by other people. Now again, this were our Thai friends. To me, this is not Thailand. This is not at all typical of the Thai government or anything. It was just this very weird situation where local military commanders acted in a way that they hoped would stop the problems, but in fact escalated them. So again, the conflict is basically between Patani Malay speaking Muslims and the Thai Buddhist government. Interestingly enough, this is not connected to the global jihad. In fact, some of the Muslims I've spoken to in the South, they feel bad that the ISIS and other, Al-Qaeda and others have not seemed too interested in them because they're fighting against Thai Buddhists instead of fighting against the West. And oddly enough, many of the even the Islamic separatists in the South are fairly pro-American and pro-European because they see the West as being very concerned with human rights issues. So I have one friend there who's a German. He works with the German Peacebuilding Foundation. He says he never wears a motorcycle helmet because it's safer for him to be seen as a foreigner, as a European in these very insurgent-ridden areas than if he wore a helmet and they thought he might be a Thai. He might get shot that way. So again, since 2004, there have been more than 7,000 deaths. So if you look at Northern Ireland, a famous conflict, there are just a little over 1,000 deaths in Northern Ireland. The Basque Country in Spain, close to 2,000. But again, the number of deaths here has been much more than many other of the ethnic hotspots in the world. 180 of those killed have been teachers. Now this is baffling to people. Why would the separatists be killing teachers? Some of the teachers were killed in front of their students. The students watched as their teachers were killed. And the explanation is that the separatists see the schools as something that's destroying their language, their culture, and their religion. And so that's why schools were targeted. Now there's been lots of international condemnation of these attacks. So fortunately, attacks on schools have gone down until just 2 months ago. 2 months ago was the first attack on a school in many, many years. And it's a sign that the insurgency, even though the violence is down, that there are still some very dedicated separatists who will stop at nothing. Now, even though in times of peace, most of the children in the area have been failing in the Thai school system for 70 years. It didn't matter, wartime, peacetime, the kids were doing terribly by all measures. In fact, one general told me that he feels a significant source of insurgents is all the boys who've been through grade 6 in Thai schools still can't read and write Thai. This general said it's probably 50% of the 6th grade graduates who are male still can't read and write Thai. And he said those are the ones who are going in with the insurgents. They're easily swayed. So this whole education issue has been a major factor. At the same time, the education throughout Thailand has developed so much in the South. It's the worst educational statistics in the country. So as all of this was happening, in 2005 and 2006, the Thai government appointed a National Reconciliation Commission. And this commission was headed by this gentleman here, a former Prime Minister, Anand Banyarachun. And I'll go ahead and confess that I really like this guy. In fact, when I was talking with Nick's dad about what I should name my firstborn son, we both decided that Anand would be a good name because Anand had been such a wonderful leader for Thailand. He'd been the Thai ambassador to Washington, D.C., the Thai ambassador to the United Nations. He'd worked closely with Kofi Annan on various peace-building measures. In fact, he referred to himself as Whiskey Annan, so he'd Whiskey Annan to be separate from Coffee Annan, as some people pronounce it. He was prime minister twice, and so in 2005, he was appointed to head this National Reconciliation Commission. Now, usually those of you in peace building know, in most countries like South Africa, Cambodia and stuff, they start their reconciliation commission after the fighting has stopped. Thailand was really forward-looking in that they started it while the fighting was still going on. And this particular commission had about 50 members of the committee. 17 of them were from the Deep South. Now, I've just been reading this biography. I don't know if our Thai friends have seen this yet. It was just printed 2 months ago in English in Bangkok. But in it, it talks about this commission and how for former Prime Minister Anand, it was a huge revelation. Even though he had so much experience and was such a wise leader, he confessed, I was at a meeting at the Foreign Correspondents Club with him, he confessed that until he sat on that commission, he had no idea what was happening in the South. He never realized the history, he didn't realize, and he even said, this was not the Thailand that I thought I was a part of. What was happening there was so un-Thai. He said many times in their meetings, they had to break it off and have everyone separate as the Southern people shared what was happening, and the Thai officials said, that's impossible, that could not be happening in our country. They had to separate, take a break for an hour, come back and talk about it more. So many disturbing revelations. Eventually, Anand went on television with the Prime Minister of Thailand at that time, and they had a discussion about the South. Anand said, we have to look at these issues of justice, of abuse. We have to admit that our country is multi-ethnic. Anand himself is of Mon descent. So again, like our ambassador from Myanmar who spent time in Mon state, he said, I'm ethnic Mon. What does it mean to be a true Thai? And how can we be more inclusive? The Prime Minister, on the other hand, who was formerly a police colonel and had a PhD in criminology from a university in Texas, said, no, this is all more related to, you know, gangsters and smuggling and masterminds. We have to go after those people and clamp down on them. So it just showed the deep divide that this conflict caused in Thai society, even among very educated, very wise political leaders. And I thought it was interesting that in the report of Anand's commission, they started out with a quote from His Majesty the King, Rama IX, the highly respected king of Thailand, who said, and His Majesty said, there are people in this country who have lived here for so long, but they are not Thais. That is, they are not regarded as real Thais. As a matter of fact, they live and were born in Thailand, but have received no benefit from Thainess. They need to be treated in the same and equal manner as other Thais. Our national security will be undermined if there are those who live in this society and yet feel deprived because no one cares. His Majesty said this in 2001. Again, the extreme violence started in 2004, but His Majesty in his wisdom was recognizing the problem that was building. And so this is just, I need to keep an eye on my watch. I get too excited. This is just a page from that report, again, showing years and years of low-scale violence, then 2004, huge uptake. And now, now it's gone down some. There are fewer violent incidents now. There are some negotiations between the government and separatists. So things look to be getting better. And the commission again said the problems, the reasons for the violence were lack of justice, confusion in state policies. Sometimes different government ministries had different policies. They were confused. Access to education was not efficient, and some of these other things. And the Reconciliation Commission also said some very interesting things about education. This is a passage directly from the report. It says, the state must develop a policy of language for education, beginning from kindergarten, including a policy of using the mother tongue, Patani Malay, as a medium of instruction. The effective teaching of spoken and written languages, i.e. Thai, Patani Malay, and English, the preparation of teachers, and the production of teaching materials. So Kunanan and his panel recognized the need for bilingual education, which again had been requested in 1946, but only 2006 where it came up. So the Ministry of Education actually took this advice and wrote it in their policy for the South, that the South shall have bilingual education. But then the question came up, what does that mean? No one in Thailand had ever done bilingual education for a minority language. They'd done it in English and Thai or Chinese and Thai, but how in the world do you start with a minority language in Thai? So one of the members of the Reconciliation Commission was Dr. Kotom Arya, who's a well-known Thai professor. And he was at Mahidol University along with this lady, a linguist named Dr. Suolai. And so he went and talked to Dr. Suolai and said, we're calling for bilingual education in our report. What does it mean? So Dr. Suolai agreed to go down to the South and look at the situation. And then she also had many friends in SIL and just talk about how we might be able to develop bilingual education. Now again, she was very shocked when she first went to the South. She said, I felt like I was in a different country. And she was amazed by all the diversity of languages she saw there. Like here is Patani Malay, but it's written with the Thai alphabet. Here is Standard Malay, but written with an Arabic alphabet. Here's Malay written in the English alphabet, and then some Standard Thai. So all of these languages and scripts all mixed together in different ways in the South. So Professor Suolai assembled a team of Muslims from the South who are Patani Malay speakers, a team of Buddhists who had experience with linguistics and education officials, and they came together to try to determine how to have bilingual, or they started to call it multilingual because it would be mother tongue Patani Malay, Thai, Standard Malay, English, and also ancient Malay. So they're really talking about 5 languages they wanted in their curriculum. They worked with several schools in the area to get some schools to agree to use this new curriculum, this new approach, and then other schools who would use the standard Thai-only approach so that they could compare and see how the students did in each one of them. Next, please. Now, as I've looked at this project, and as Mr. Bremer mentioned, it's been very successful. It won the UNESCO, award for literacy, sort of like the Nobel Prize for Education. Unfortunately, the Thai newspapers weren't interested in that. It's sort of sad that Thailand could have received this great, worldwide award, but it received little attention. But anyway, I think the factors that led to the success of this program were first, that it was research-based. Second, that it had very good partners. Third, community involvement was a big part. Fourth, there was rigorous evaluation. And fifth, sustainable teacher production. And I'll discuss each of these in further detail as we go along. I'm getting more and more excited. I hope I'm not speaking too quickly here. All right, next slide, please. So as far as preliminary research, when they began the program, all of the education officials in the Deep South told the team, oh, the parents don't want their children to learn Thai. They don't care about Thai, they don't teach it at the home. So the team asked more than 1,000 parents. And it turned out that most of the parents said, no, we want our children to learn Thai. We recognize we're part of Thailand. They need Thai to go to university and have good jobs. We want them to learn Thai. We don't know how to help them do it. So that was very stirring. The research also found that, again, most of them spoke Patani Malay as their main language every day. Very, very few knew Standard Malay. So this was another confusing part because some people said, well, just use books from Malaysia. But in fact, these two, Patani Malay and Standard Malay, are somewhat different, like Spanish and Portuguese. And especially for the children, it would not have worked to give them Standard Malay books. And most of the teachers couldn't read, write, or speak Standard Malay. So again, most of the respondents felt that Patani Malay was their best language. Very few felt they spoke Thai well, but then we gave them a reading test and tested them in several different languages. And it turned out that the language they read best was Thai. But, so some could not read anything, and those who were able to read Thai, many of them could read a Thai paragraph and it sounded perfect, and then you asked them a question about it. And you realize they did not understand what they were reading. So there's this huge crisis of wanting to speak Thai well, not being able to, having Thai accents that when they speak Thai, even worse than my Thai accent, they're immediately identified as a person from the South. And then even though Thai is the only language they read well, many can't understand what they're reading. Next slide, please. So this project also looked to a lot of international research, including research from right here in the United States. Now this research was very fun because it resulted from a fight between a husband and wife. I don't know any of you who are married here. I've been married 27 years, and of course I never fight with my wife, never. But these two professors were having a fight because they were doing research on children in America who do not speak English in the home, who speak Spanish or Russian or Laotian or any number of other languages. And the husband thought the best way to teach these students is to use English only in the classroom. And the wife said, no, I think they should have their mother tongue and then add English on. So the husband and wife decided to solve their fight by doing a massive survey, looking at 42,000 students in America, all the way from grade 1 through grade 12, and seeing how they did over time, depending on the type of education they were in. And what they found was the students who were doing the best at grade 12 were the ones who had mother tongue in their early years. And the students who did the worst by grade 12 were the ones in English-only classrooms. So completely opposite of what people had expected. On this they did with 42,000 students. They've now done more than 1 million students, and they keep finding the same thing. If the student has some of their mother tongue in the school in the early years, they will do much better. Their English will be better. They'll be better at math, science, all subjects. It's something about the cognitive development in the human brains that people just build those basic skills better if it's in a language that they speak and understand very well. So this, again, had a significant influence on the Thai project. Oh, and this is where we can switch to that really quick. This is just sort of a funny illustration of what we found in many places where children are trying to get from their mother tongue to the national language. Let's see. So I think you can press it. There it goes. So here we have a young child. She's from her mother tongue. She's going to the school. And a few of them do fine. Maybe 20% in any school system are good. But the majority don't quite make it. So the one student who makes it across, that's the star student. And it's the student that gets mentioned in all the government reports about, look, this student did brilliantly. But they don't like to talk so much about the 80% who failed. So what we tried to do in what we call Mother MLE Bridge is to build a bridge starting first with mother tongue listening and speaking, and then reading and finally writing in the mother tongue. And once those skills are secure, we start with listening in the national language, then speaking, and finally reading and writing in that order. Now, usually when a child learns a second language, what do we start teaching them first? Like those of you from different countries, when you learned English, what's the first thing the teacher tries to teach you? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You start writing the ABCs. Completely opposite of the natural way we learn languages. And this had been an issue in the South because the teacher spent lots of time trying to get the children to write Thai sentences, copy Thai sentences, memorize the Thai alphabet, which is a very big alphabet. Thailand has a big alphabet. But they were doing that, but they were never developing the hearing skills or the speaking skills. Okay, so again, the Thai partners in this project really looked at this research to try to develop a strong bridge that would be helpful. And again, they also recognized, based on international research, that it wasn't enough just to produce books. In order for a program to be successful, you had to do that preliminary research to really understand the situation, not just accept what all the people are telling you, but really ask the community members, see what's going on. You have to have a realistic plan, awareness raising and mobilization. One of the biggest parts is talking to parents, because many of the parents at first did not understand why their children should use the mother tongue. They said, we want our kids to be good at Thai. They should be in Thai all the time. So we had to explain, yes, but having their mother tongue first will help them learn Thai better. And it's been exciting to see some of the parents are now very enthusiastic of this project. And they've even been going to other villages to tell other parents, you should try this MLE approach. You need a good alphabet. We'll talk in a minute about how alphabets can be very controversial. You need good curriculum and instruction materials, lots of things for kids to read. You need to recruit teachers who can speak the language, train them how to work. You need good monitoring and evaluation because you need facts to support what you're doing. And again, good partnerships with many different people, not just the school people, but communities, religious leaders, artists, and also some good supportive policies from the government are also very helpful. So as this project started, they tried to look at all these different dimensions to integrate into the project plan. Now on to effective partnerships. The most crucial partner for this turned out to be UNICEF. And you'll see on the brochures in the back and the books that you can take if you like, but this research was published by UNICEF. So why did UNICEF become involved in this project? At first, I thought it was because they wanted the kids to do better in school. But as we talked more, we found that UNICEF's goals were much deeper. During the time of the violence, UNICEF had gone down and interviewed many school children and asked them to draw pictures of their experiences. Because again, these children might not be able to explain their experiences, but they could draw pictures. So they were to draw pictures of a good experience and a bad experience. So like this young lady, this was from a Buddhist child who wrote about her good experience about her brother teaching aerobics in another province. So he was far away, not dangerous. She said her bad experience was when her Muslim friend's father was shot to death as he was going to the mosque to pray. This 12-year-old Muslim boy wrote about visiting the zoo as a good experience, and then as his bad experience when a tea shop down the street from his house was attacked, and many people were killed there. This 17-year-old Muslim boy wrote of his good experience of collecting rubber with his parents. Rubber plantations are a big part of the economy there. His bad experience was when the insurgents destroyed his school. So UNICEF was looking first at the emotional needs of these children and how this trauma was affecting them. And then UNICEF was also looking at the national statistics. Now again, Thailand is famous for having a good literacy rate. 98% of people in Thailand can read and write. That's higher than America. But if you look at the South, you see that many, many children cannot read and write at all by grade 3 or need improvement. And writing, like over 60% of children in the South can't write at a basic level. Whereas if you look at Bangkok, it's only 5.8% of kids, and most of them are handicapped. So UNICEF looked at this and said, there's a great deal of inequality or inequity. Something is wrong. How can 60% of the children be failing in education? And so they looked at it from what's called an equity standpoint. So if you think of these as children, and this being the minority speaker, the reality is usually the minority children live in the most remote areas, they get the worst teachers, they have the least access to resources. So they're down here. Now some governments try to get equality, and they think that the equality will be brought by making everyone equal. So in the Thai setting, this has meant that every child in Thailand gets the same textbooks. Okay, that's good that a child in Bangkok has the same books as a child in the South or the North, but the child is still shorter to begin with. So even though theoretically they're equal with textbooks and qualified teachers who finished a bachelor degree, the child still isn't really seeing the full picture. So UNICEF's point is you need equity, which is giving the extra resources to the disadvantaged children so then they can truly have the same opportunities as the other kids in the society. So UNICEF was really focused on this whole equity-based approach to education in the South and elsewhere. Now, again, we mentioned effective partnerships, so UNICEF was a good partner. Also, other organizations came into the partnership. The Ministry of Education was a vital partner. The Thailand Research Fund invested millions of Thai baht into the project. The Southern Border Provincial Administrative Center, the local government, even the National Security Council had a representative on this committee. And that was so important for the military to understand that what was being done here, and that it wasn't supporting separatism or criticizing the government or anything. It was just an effort to help the children. UNICEF, Yala Ratchapat University, a local university, the Royal Institute, which is like the highest, it's a group of scholars in Bangkok who are dedicated to the Thai language, sort of like the French Academy or other things like that. So high-ranking scholars. SIL, our organization, was part of it. Also many religious and community leaders, many Muslim leaders were there. You can see some of them in the different hats that are represented there. There's Dr. Kotom, that you Thai people might know. So again, it was very necessary to have this large-scale collaboration between government, civil society, and communities. Now, as far as the community involvement, one of the first big problems, well, not a problem, but the first thing they had to do is, how are we going to write this language? And they basically had three options. You remember I showed you the sign earlier with all the different scripts on that sign. Well, they could have used the Yawi script. Yawi is not the name of a language, it's the name of an alphabet. And it's a form of Arabic that was adapted to write Malay about 600 years ago. And so it is seen as like a sacred language. And all the children in the South learn to read Yawi in the mosques every weekend. So Yawi was one potential, but the problem is, because it's a sacred script and it's 600 years old, they were not allowed to change it. So I say it would be like in English if we tried to teach an American kindergartner to read and write using Shakespeare written in Russian script. It'd be very, very difficult because the language was just so old. It didn't match the way people pronounced it. And in fact, the more we've studied this, the more we find that even though people love this ancient script so much, most of them can't read it. No one uses it to write letters. The European Union a few years ago translated human rights legislation into the Yawi script and also into Thai. And they were amazed when they started giving the books out that everyone took the Thai. And even some of the imams, the Muslim leaders, confessed on the side, well, we really don't read this language very much. It's a powerful symbol, but not practical for an education program. Then they considered Rumi. Rumi is the Roman-based alphabet of Malaysia. Looks very much like English. But that caused problems as well because most of the teachers could not read or write Rumi. And also the military felt if they were using Rumi, it will look like Malaysia and it will support the separatist cause. So that one was out. Finally, the community as a whole decided they wanted to use the Thai alphabet with some special adaptations to write their language. But they said, well, we want our children to learn Thai. It will be very, very easy for them to learn using this system. All of the teachers can read Thai, so they can use that as well, whereas these other two won't work. But it was still a very, very emotional discussion. And especially some of the Islamic leaders were very much trying to support the old Arabic form. But again, it simply did not work for children. And the agreement of the community and the parents was, we have to do what works for our children. And so they decided in the end to start with that Thai-based alphabet for the young children, later to teach them standard Thai, and then in grade 4 to teach them Rumi so they can get jobs in Malaysia later, and finally in grade 4 or 5 to do the ancient script as well, because by that time the children would be old enough to be able to learn it better. So again, alphabets can be a huge issue in peace building even. In the Bosnian states, after Yugoslavia broke up, alphabets became literally a life and death issue for some people. So in the end, this was the orthography or the script they used. So this is the Patani Malay. All of the circled letters are letters which are the same in Patani Malay and in Thai. So again, by using this, they are already learning more than half of the Thai alphabet. And this way of writing Patani Malay was approved by the Royal Institute of Thailand, again, the highest body in the country for language issues. This was the first time in its 80-year history that the Royal Institute had approved a minority script. Since then, they've now approved about 10 of them, so it's a great development for Thailand to acknowledge the indigenous peoples. Next slide, please. But we also had to look at the government regulations for the school. So the Ministry of Education of Thailand has very clear guidelines on what a child needs to learn grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and so forth. So we took those standards, but decided to fulfill them using the mother tongue, using the language the children could understand. So that we could say to the government, look, these children are learning everything they need to, and they can be tested just like other children. And then it came down to developing the curriculum, writing books, writing teacher's guide. And for that, it was all based on community development. Now, at first, some people said, wait a minute, the Ministry of Education does not have staff who can write all these books for you. And we said, well, we really don't need the Ministry of Education in Bangkok to write the books. We need to work with the local people. So local teachers, community leaders, many musicians, and artists from the area all came together, and they were just so excited to be developing these things. So they would look at the Ministry of Education standards and then develop books to meet those standards. So it was a very, very exciting process. So in the end, this is the sort of step-by-step method that was used starting in kindergarten all the way through grade 6. And there are more details about this in the brochures, but again, basically in kindergarten, for the youngest students, focusing on listening and speaking their mother tongue first for cognitive development. And then pre-reading and pre-writing exercises. So they begin reading and writing in their mother tongue. And about that time, towards the end of kindergarten, they start listening to Thai, but focusing on lots of Thai listening first. I'll explain more about that in a minute. And then throughout time, they continue adding other languages, but always following this listening first, then speaking, then reading, then writing. Next slide, please. So like for those early grades, this is a wonderful poster. They made dozens of posters of life in their village. Now, I won't embarrass our Thai host here, but I've shown this to many people in Bangkok, and many people in Bangkok, they recognize the mosque, but many other aspects of life here they don't recognize. For example, here, that this is a cemetery, because Thai Buddhists cremate their dead, the Muslims bury them. Most people in Bangkok wouldn't recognize the washing yourself before going into the mosque. Even here, where they're shaking hands, there's a special way in the South that you show respect in the way you shake hands, and it's different for children and adults. So they needed to learn all about, you learn about the different snacks that you take to the mosque on certain days. So they would begin with the small children going over these type of things to get them talking, to get them thinking, to get them participating, and eventually writing stories about this. And then later they use this to teach them the Thai words for the same things. And later on, the Thai culture for the same thing. So like Thai is cremating, and instead of shaking hands in Thai, you Y. And the Thai Y, I should be doing this, but our Thai friends can say, is very, very sophisticated way of greeting. How high you Y, where you start, how it goes up, tells a lot about your relationship with the person. And this has been an issue in the South because many of the teachers say, the children do not respect us because they're doing the Y wrong. Sometimes the children are Ying down here. And if you Y a teacher down here, that is not good. It needs to be much higher because the teacher is higher. Some of the parents in the South refused to teach their children to Y because they had seen Thai people Ying the Buddha image in the temple. And so the parents thought if we teach them this greeting, then it will lead to them worshiping the Buddha, and that will be a great sin. Allah will be angry with us. So it was a lot of dialogue, and again, helping them understand, just like when you shake hands, and for a small child, shaking an elder, I'm not saying you're older than the child would have to shake and then kiss their hand to show respect. Someone who's of similar age, you shake the hand and then touch your heart to show respect. So then they use that, talking about what they do in their culture to explain to the children how to Y properly in Thai culture. So again, part of peace building is understanding each other. So this whole curriculum was designed to help the children understand their own culture, be able to talk about it in their mother tongue, and then be able to talk about their culture in the Thai language, and also to be able to understand Thai culture. And many of the parents have said now their small children aren't afraid of soldiers anymore because they know how to greet the soldiers correctly, they know the right words to use with the soldiers, and they enjoy talking to the soldiers now, whereas before, their older brothers and siblings are scared of the soldiers. So again, so much of these cultural things were put into the mother tongue thing, trying again to approach peace building as well as helping the children improve their language skills. Please. So again, as I mentioned earlier, they began developing their mother tongue reading and writing skills first, using lots of big books, doing lots of reading first, reading for fun. This sadly is something that does not happen much in most Thai schools. The Thai schools are so focused on teaching grammar to young children that they often never do reading for fun. But these kids were doing lots of reading for fun, again, first in their mother tongue. And again, our Thai colleagues could see that words like this, you can read, not all, but you wouldn't know the meaning of this. But again, they start with these very, very simple concepts. They don't memorize the alphabet and learn word building skills. So again, reading and writing in the mother tongue first. And when they do their initial writing, the teachers are never allowed to tell them that they've spelled something wrong. It's all about encouraging their creativity. And they'll learn to spell better eventually, but for their younger children, just get them reading and writing. And now as a result, some of the teachers say they can't believe how the children love to read. And one of the biggest needs is they keep running out of books. So we have to keep translating more and more books into their language. Many of the children, instead of playing outside, they stay inside the classrooms to read books or even to write their own stories. First graders writing their own stories in their mother tongue because they've been taught that creativity is a good thing and they can express anything in their stories. Sadly, one government official came and she said, she's from the Ministry of Education, she said, it's impossible. Children in grade 1 cannot write stories. They cannot write until they are in grade 4 and have learned all the correct spelling and grammar. We thought, what? These children are reading and writing. They're doing it, they're writing stories. And you know, if you're worried about spelling and grammar more than the child's creativity, well, that will cause problems later. So yeah, so this one is next. And it's been fun to see the children, they really get into this and they enjoy playing teacher. One of the techniques used is to have the children come up and lead the literacy lessons. And so they are very happy to try to teach me how to read and write and laugh at my pronunciation. Then there's a special program called Thai Acquisition for Ethnic Children. Now, I know a few of you have been in Thailand. For a foreigner learning Thai, the worst thing about Thai is the Thai tones. My. that was 5 different words. Totally different meanings, depending if your voice goes up or down or up and down or down and up. These tones are very, very difficult for foreigners. So for me, it's easy because there's about 100 apps I can get on my iPhone that will help me learn Thai tones. Well, children in the South, the Patani Malay language, like English, has no tones. And so that's a terrible thing for the children down there, because that's why they're always spelling everything wrong, because they don't pronounce the tones correctly. And there has never been any program to teach them Thai tones. Again, the foreigners, we can get books, DVDs, apps. Nothing had ever been done for these children. So they start by learning differences between these 2 words. And I'll let our Thai speakers say what this word is and what this word is. And say it really loud so everyone can hear and try to see which one is which. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to ask all of you to raise your hand, and when she says crab, point to the left. When she says grandfather, point to the right. So just say it about 10 times and mix it up, and we'll see if everyone can hear it.
Oh. 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 Oh.
Are we right? Okay. So they do this with literally hundreds of cards to help them be able to hear the Thai tones. Not say them. Again, when they're young, we don't want them to practice speaking Thai because they'll say it wrong, and then they'll say it wrong forever. So lots of ear training and many other techniques, starting with basic words, sentences, and then even dramas, where the teacher will tell a story like the cat and the mice. You know the story, the mice tie the bell to the cat, and have all the children acting out these stories. So they're hearing Thai, they're reacting, and they're absorbing Thai grammar and pronunciation. Then later on, when they get to Thai writing, they begin reading and writing the words they've already learned from listening, and also words that are similar in their language. So like the Thai word for rice field is na. In their language, na means it's a type of fruit, like a jackfruit. So they start with words that are similar in the 2 languages, very easy to read, and things that they've learned through listening before. So that helps them build a bridge to Thai much more efficiently. And again, this has been supported by lots of evaluations. So we've had a total of 5 different evaluations done of this project, looking at literacy, looking at all subjects every year. We have the national tests, we have tests of community attitudes, teacher testing, all these different kind of tests, and all of them have found that this approach, the mother tongue approach, is much more effective. So let's look first at Thai literacy skills. Now again, this was a major goal because, again, maybe 50% of the boys never learning to read and write Thai. So they did a study, go ahead, I think there's a bunch of little things. Yeah, keep pressing the button there a few more times. Of just looking at basic Thai words, first among first graders to see how they were doing. And then they compared the statistics between the children in the MLE classes with mother tongue and the children in the normal Thai schools. So the children in the mother tongue are the blue here, and they had spent 250 hours in the school year learning Thai. The children in the comparison schools, the Thai subject, they had 350 hours and all their courses were in Thai. So this group had 250 hours in Thai. This group had over 1,000 hours in Thai. What were the results? Well, 63% of these students who had only 250 hours scored perfectly on the Thai literacy exam, whereas 62%, almost the same amount here, got everything wrong. So again, after 1,000 hours in Thai, 62% of them still got everything wrong. This followed up in some sentence writing in the next example, where the children who had very little Thai plus mother tongue, 44% of them could write perfect sentences, whereas on the other hand, 64% of these children couldn't even write more than a letter or a fewer word. Only 28% got everything correct. So again, we see this radical imbalance, and it shows again how the mother tongue is helping them learn Thai better. And just submerging children in Thai is actually making them learn Thai worse. And I think because I want time for questions, I'm going to skip through some. These are just more statistics. basically saying the same thing. On every measure we did, the children who had mother tongue did much, much better. This one was in first grade. Most of the children in Thai-only schools scored between 20 and 30%. Most of the children in the mother tongue between 80 and 90%. This huge difference on how children are doing. These are all subjects. We check them every grade from grade 1 to 6. And the next one, and this is really the difference in the rate of passing. So again, most of the children in the Thai-only schools did not pass. Year after year, they did not pass, but they still got sent to the next grade. So they didn't really understand everything from first grade, but they got sent to second grade. They didn't understand second grade, but they still got sent to third grade. So most of them were failing almost all the way, whereas those students with mother tongue plus Thai were doing much, much better. Now, of course, having teachers is a major, major issue in all these programs. And fortunately, we were able to cooperate with a university in that region, Yala Ratchapat University. They had originally been hired to do the evaluation of these students. And the professors there were so amazed that the students were doing so well, they said, we want to do this. We want to train our students to teach in this way. So actually, that Thai university has become the first university in Asia to develop a mother tongue teacher preparation system. And for that, they also received honorable commendation by UNESCO for another UNESCO award. So again, this program in Thailand is the only program in the history of UNESCO. UNESCO's been there 70 years. This Thai program is the only one to receive 2 UNESCO awards. Sadly, many people in the Ministry of Education still don't believe it will work. But now we have hundreds of young students who've been trained to use these teaching techniques. And they've, again, this was very supported by the European Union, who recognizes the role of bilingual education as a peace-building method. For UNICEF's part, UNICEF said basically there are 4 wins for this project. First of all, the children are learning better Thai faster. That's a win. Secondly, they're learning all subjects better. Math, science, social studies, they're doing better in everything. That's a win. The ONET, which is a national test that all children take in grade 6, their scores are better there. And most importantly, the community was supporting it. These communities that formerly sometimes participated in burning down schools. These communities that formerly would protect insurgents who were hiding in their midst. These communities came around and came to say that we love this approach. Our children are learning Thai, so they have a better future. They're also learning their local language, so they respect our traditions. We're not threatened by this. I thought this quote by one mother was particularly good. She said, "My first son is in grade 5. There are so many Thai words he cannot read. My second son is in grade 1 in the mother tongue approach, and he can read fluently. Now the younger brother is teaching his older brother how to read." So again, just incredible community support. The Thailand Research Fund went and interviewed over 100 parents, and all the parents said the same thing. This is what we want to see. It's good for our children, and it will be good for the peace-building process. And again, here's the medallion that the program received from UNESCO. And the next one. So based on this, we have some recommendations for the Thai Ministry of Education. Again, integrating this mother tongue-based education into national education plans. And this has actually happened. The new MOE plan for this year talks a lot about using mother tongue for the ethnic minorities and Hill Tribe students. The ministry is now open to developing these programs for other minority groups in the country, maybe expanding to other schools in the Deep South. In the Deep South, there are 700 schools where all of the children are Patani Malay. No Thai Buddhists are in those 700 schools. Previously, the ministry said, oh, we can't do this, we'll discriminate against the Thai students. So we said, well, that's fine. You only have 800 schools in the South. 700 of them have 100% Patani Malay students. So just do the ones with Patani Malay students. You don't have to enforce that on the Thai Buddhist children. Also adapting the Thai for ethnic children materials for migrant children. We have many migrant children from Myanmar living in Thailand. Some statistics say up to 400,000. About half of them are not in Thai schools, sadly. But now from Save the Children is adapting some of these materials to use with the Burmese students in Thai schools. And they're learning Thai much faster, much better. And that's definitely a win both for Thailand and Myanmar. One of the things that they still have to do, though, is have a system to do better at recruiting and training teachers who speak these languages, both in the South and in other places. And this will help Thailand with the Sustainable Development Goals, because there actually is an indicator in the SDGs that asks countries to report on the percentage of students in primary education whose first or home language is the language of instruction. So again, this would be a huge issue for about 15% of the children in Thailand. In Myanmar, it's more like 30 or 40% of the children. So by doing these mother tongue programs, the country can report better SDG progress. So sort of in conclusion then, the current situation right now, this mother tongue approach is ongoing in about 12 schools. The Ministry of Education is discussing how they might expand. So I have talked very excitedly about this. You have all been wonderful to listen. I'm happy to address any questions. And again, just to express my thanks via our representatives from the embassy that the Thai government has permitted this program for the last 10 years, that many of the government have been supportive, and especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, back to Ambassador Gasit, and Gitipon Narayong was also very supportive of this. So great gratitude to Thailand.
All right. Well, thank you, Kurt. We have about 10 minutes or so for questions. If you have a microphone, sorry, I should be doing this. If you have a microphone, push your button so the green light comes on. And then Sam, if you could maybe see, oh, I guess we can see up there if anybody from the Zoom feed has questions as well. All right, any questions? Yes, Ambassador Lin.
Firstly, good morning to all of you. I want to say hello to my colleagues from our diplomatic community and our ASEAN friends. I also thank the Alliance for Peacebuilding and SIL for inviting us for this event. Thank you very much, Dr. Person, for your very, very insightful and educational presentation. This is a very important subject that we take into account of, because our country is also a multinational and multilingual country, and also what you have been doing, what you did in Thailand also can learn many lessons. We can learn many lessons from you. Mother tongue based language integrating the mother tongue based education into national languages, very, very important at this time in our country as well. And also we have very similar issues like Thailand has been experiencing in the past. We are trying to address these kind of issues that we have with different communities who speak different languages. And it is very useful for us to come to listen to you today. Well, what I would like to know is that, well, you mentioned about the mother tongue, integration of mother tongue based language into national language. And you mentioned about from 1st grade to 6th grade. This mother tongue based education is slightly different from the mainstream language, right? The national language. So after completing the 6th grade, how are they going to integrate with the mainstream? Because the language that the mother tongue based language is slightly different. The characters are slightly different from the mainstream. So how are they going to, how do these students adjust themselves to integrate with the national language? Do they still keep the language that they study in the what you call junior classes, and how do they integrate into the what you call the national education to enter into universities and so on? This will be a very good lesson for us as well.
Yes. Well, excellent question, Ambassador. And yes, I didn't go into details of that, but essentially, when they begin in kindergarten and 1st grade, maybe 90% is in the mother tongue. Okay. But then in each grade, the percent of mother tongue decreases and the percentage of Thai increases. So by grade 6, it's only about 10% mother tongue and 90% Thai. So then they are very ready to go on to secondary school. And there are different techniques that are used to teach science and math in the mother tongue first, but then also teach them the Thai words for those concepts and help bring them along. So, but yes, so thank you for that question.
Thank you very much.
So Thank you, Dr. Person. This is Shakil Malik. I'm from DAI, Development Alternative Global, the practice leader for global education. Two things. First, a small correction. Because of my Bengali background, I have to say this.
No.
The history is 1952, not 1971.
Okay.
The actual fight happened in 1952 when the Pakistan government announced that Urdu would be a national language, and the medical students protested, and there was fire on the medical students. Interestingly enough, my mother was part of that movement.
Wow.
She is no longer in this world. She passed away, but she was actively involved in the politics. So,
But it was February 21?
21.
21.
In
okay.
1952.
But then was 1971?
71 was the war.
Was the war.
The
Okay.
liberation
That
war.
is a liberation war.
That's the
Separation from.
But actually, the absolute correct what you said is that language movement shook the Bengali community. That it's impossible because it's my identity, it's my context, and the only country in the world who fought their liberation was because of language in the world. That's why it's so important for us. But the second part is also the contextual thing that it's more of a comment rather than a question. And it was so wonderful to see your report that how the context is so important when children are learning in the early grades. And there is a new research that one of my close friend is doing at MIT, Dr. Dev. He actually did, I'm gonna take just a minute to explain the story. Before his first child was born, he put 200 cameras inside his house. Dave Roy, a very close friend of mine. And he put 200 cameras before the child was brought to home. He recorded first 2 years of data, what the child is doing throughout the day, not private stuff, but what the child is doing. And he wanted to track the first day when the child will speak the first word. That's what he was trying to track. And guess what? After 2 years of data, and of course we can now, he's a data analyst. So he analyzed the data of 2 years, the big data. You know what the child learned? The first word was not mom and dad, it was water. And because our highest traction is the water faucet in the kitchen. And that's where he used to go the highest time, a number of times in 2 years, where the mother was there, the father was there, and we all go close to the water because of our survival instinct. And it's unbelievable, doesn't matter in the middle of Cambridge, Massachusetts, not in the far-flung Afghanistan where you go 5 kilometers to fetch water. The kid would speak water, and in mother tongue. They are from South India, so they are Telugu language, and it's just unbelievable. So I think it's so connected with the peace building that when we really set aside ourselves from the mother tongue issue, because that is our identity issue. And the context and identity is so crucial about peace building, because when people think that they are not recognized as humans, they are not recognized about their own heritage and respect, then all the conflict starts right there, and then and there. And we are having the same issue in Bangladesh now, although we are more heterogeneous group, not heterogeneous, homogeneous group, all Bengali, right? But people are learning English and other language and the Bollywood influence, forgetting the real Bangla. So when you ask a young guy, speak for 5 minutes on the topic you like, I don't know, they can't speak for 2 minutes in their own mother tongue. And it's happening in many, many countries. So I thank you for raising this issue to that level. Now everybody gonna give attention because it's such a crucial issue for us. Thank you.
Yes, and I was going to say, today or actually yesterday in Bangkok, my colleagues who did this program at Mahidol University cooperated with the Bangladeshi embassy to support Mother Language Day in Bangkok. UNESCO was there and UNICEF and others.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions or discussions or anybody?
Kurt, could you maybe just kind of go over again, what were some of the major challenges to this whole program actually getting off the ground and succeeding? What was?
I think, well, as any of you who've worked in conflict zones know, trust is a huge issue. And so, and really in this, both sides, the Thai government was not sure if this program would be promoting separatism. And many of the Muslim leaders thought that this was another Thai government plot to actually destroy their language instead of honor it and help it. So I think lots of people's preconceived notions was a major thing. Again, initially even the parents, for them to give their consent for their school to be a pilot project. And in the end, some of the parents that agreed, they were like, well, we know that everything is bad now, so let's try this because maybe it will be better, even though we don't understand why it would be. So it's been neat to see the parents come through that transformation. And again, with trust building, like there were times where the villagers would tell our teams, don't come to our village on this day, because they knew that something was going to happen. Yeah, and it's very sad because to this day, teachers are getting ambushed on their ways. Many of the teachers have to be accompanied to their schools, especially the Thai Buddhist teachers, by military escorts, and they're often attacked en route. So that's very sad and tragic, but at least hopefully progress is being made. And, yeah.
It looks like we do have a question from online.
Okay.
Kelsey is asking, could you explain a little bit more about how the study might influence curriculum reform at the national level? The Thai national curriculum is heavily based on Thai-ness, Thai language, and Thai values.
Oh, wow, yes, Kelsey, that's a very, very good question and a very deep one. Actually, just last week, I was with some Thai educators in the province of Nakhon Sawan, which is a central Thai area, who are talking about this idea of how Thai-ness and Thai values can be conveyed in the curriculum in a way that does not feel exclusive or that does not exclude minority language children. So it is a very active discussion. And even, I mentioned earlier that the National Security Council, there was a representative from the National Security Council on our steering committee. And she spoke often, she said within the National Security Council, some of them have been discussing the need for a new vision of Thai-ness. What is the definition of Thai-ness that can take the country really into, well, the new millennium, as it were, that will be more inclusive and that will also build up the country generally, that won't necessarily rely on a highly nationalistic or ethnic characteristic. Because again, some groups in Thailand are very educated, are very integrated. I mean, the ethnic Chinese in Thailand have done very well in the system. Most of our prime ministers have been ethnic Chinese, so they have been able to assimilate well. But what are some ways to broaden the appeal and get a larger tent in there? And I think, especially in the South, just helping them feel that they are indeed Thai. You know, every time a general goes to the South, he often asks the people, when there's a football game, do you cheer for the Malaysian team or the Thai team if we're playing the Malaysians? And everyone, of course, always answers, well, the Thai team. But in my conversation with many Muslims, I think it's true. They do feel a sense of Thai-ness. And one of my PhD students who's from the South, whose father was an Islamic leader who was assassinated in the South, he's researched this extensively. And he's found that the people there do have more of a sense of Thai-ness than they do a sense of being attached to the country of Malaysia. But at the same time, there is a desire there for the definition of Thai-ness to expand to include them. And I think we've seen some positive developments in some of the Ministry of Education's materials talking about ethnic diversity in Thailand. Actually, what got UNICEF interested in this project in the very beginning was the language map that I showed at the beginning, about 70 languages. And at that time, UNICEF was hoping to influence the Ministry of Education to include that in the social studies curriculum. That hasn't happened yet, but we have seen, again, some progress in the social studies curriculum. So I think there's a lot of hope. And I personally, after being in Thailand for 30 years, I continue to have a lot of hope because of all the extraordinary Thai people that I meet in government service and in other sectors of society, professors and others. So I think things are moving gradually in a good direction. But those things don't make the headlines as much as bad news. So.
Thank you, Kirk.
All right, well, I want to thank you, Kirk, for your presentation. Thank you all for coming. I want to respect our time here. We can hang around for a few minutes to answer questions informally. Thank you, everyone who joined us on Zoom as well. And look forward to seeing you all at other language-related events this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.